38 years ago, we got the greatest handshake of all time, and were treated to an incredibly tense, exciting, and fresh monster movie with an awesome new creature called Predator that spawned 4 sequels, soon to be 5, 2 crossover movies with Alien, and an animated spin-off. Every time a new Predator movie comes out, it's a huge event, and there seem to be no signs of stopping. But this first one is still widely considered the best and has stood the test of time, and is honestly so much better than it has any right to be. It's considered one of the most iconic movies in 3 different genres. Why is that? What makes Predator so timeless and rewatchable? Why is it so hard for the sequels to live up to it? Let's dive into everything that makes Predator so great. Spoilers, obviously. First off, Predator does some of the best genre blending I have ever seen, combining action, horror, and sci-fi better than anything besides Aliens and the first Terminator. What makes it even more unique is the fact that it doesn't start out as a horror film at all. It begins as more of a standard Arnold Schwarzenegger macho action military vehicle with a huge gunfight and one-liners, but after the destruction of the guerrilla camp, it takes a sharp turn into slasher horror as these badass commandos start getting picked off one by one by an unknown creature that we know very little about and can't even see. I honestly wish they didn't even include the ship at the beginning to entirely hide what the film was really about. Could you imagine the shock people would have had while watching this for the first time? The reaction to the first kill? It would have been one of the coolest twists and genre shifts in cinema history. What could have been? And while everyone has their own thoughts and definitions, I get confused when people say Predator is not a horror movie. It's terrifying. A monster that you can't see picks people off one by one, kills them in brutal ways, and skins and hangs up their bodies. Sounds like a slasher to me. Sure, the Predator has more technology than just a knife, and it's military commandos, not high schoolers or sorority girls, but the general foundation of a slasher film is definitely there. It certainly feels and plays out like one. Seeing the hanging bodies for the first time was a brutal jump scare, one of the most effective ones I've ever seen. I actually had to turn the movie off the first time I watched it many years ago, which is really the only time I've ever done that, even as a kid. I had watched several other bloody rated R movies at that point, including Terminator and several other Arnold movies without even really having an issue, but this one was a bit much for me. It was really eerie, and once Blaine got his chest blown open and they showed the wound, I had to bail. Of course, I gave it another chance a couple years later when I was getting more into horror, and I loved it, and the rest is history. What is the primary thing a horror movie requires to be effective? A good atmosphere. Predator has that throughout the entire runtime, and the tension continues to build as the film goes along. Even before the killings begin, there is this mysterious, almost elusive feeling of dread and unease. You're not entirely sure what it is, but something is wrong, and this is not going to end well for most of the characters. The hanging bodies is the first real sign that something is off. Then you see the Predator's vision and are like, what the heck is this? Then Billy seeing something in the trees is the confirmation that something terrible is about to go down. But it doesn't lay all of that on you right away. It slowly builds suspense until the first kill happens over 40 minutes into the film. But even after that, the uneasy feeling remains because you never know who is going to go next, when it is going to happen, or how it is going to happen. Keeping you on the edge of your seat is the key to a good horror film, and Predator never lets up. Something that I've always loved about this film that makes it stand out amongst other slashers and alien movies is the Predator's technology. It has all kinds of cool weapons like the plasma cannon, the spear, and the shredder-like wrist blades. The cloaking technology is also awesome, and the fact that the Predator is hidden for most of the movie adds another layer of mystery and tension. You don't really get that in the other movies in the franchise because you've already seen it, but when this first one came out, the audience had no idea what they were dealing with. The very first thing you see from the creature is its infrared vision, and you don't even really understand what you're looking at first. The distorted voices make it extra creepy, especially Billy's laugh, the stuff of nightmares. Plus the clicking, anyone who hears that sound, they immediately know that's the sound the Predator makes. Hawkins' death, which is the first time we see the Predator kill, is one of the most intense scenes ever put to screen. We still don't really understand what's happening, the music builds, and this weird-looking thing that we can barely see just appears out of the jungle, kills him, or rather slashes him in a split second, and drags his body away. It was at that moment that we knew we were in for something wild. I actually think the fact that the cloaking effects were not quite perfected yet, and it looks a little off, makes it even more effective. It moves in a very unsettling way. The very first time actually seeing the Predator was awesome as well. One of my favorite creature designs, and the way that it patched itself up, so dope. The first time it took its mask off was equally badass. What a cool yet hideous monster. Kevin Peter Hall plays the Predator in costume, and he was the perfect choice. He was an incredibly tall, imposing figure that captures the essence of the menacing Predator. He's such a big part of why the creature works so well as a villain. May he rest in peace. The Predator is also a unique style of hunter. It doesn't kill for food, resources, or survival, but for the challenge, to test itself against worthy warriors. It's like a sport or a game to them, but with deadly consequences for them or for their victims. Ripping people's spines out is wild. I certainly didn't expect that my first time watching. It also develops a sort of respect for Dutch and his abilities, even dropping its weapons and engaging him in a fistfight in the end. The Predator doesn't just kill Dutch when it has the chance. It respects him enough to want to make it a fair fight. That is a warrior with the code. It's not a mindless killing machine like the Xenomorph or the shark from Jaws. And don't get me wrong, those are quite effective as well, but it's nice to see something else for a change. That trope had been played out at this point. We needed something new, and we got it. If the Predator had just been like every other movie monster up until this point, the film would have gotten lost in the shuffle. Along those lines, the victims in this movie are not helpless kids just waiting around to get killed. These are trained, badass military guys who take out a whole guerrilla camp like a hot knife through butter, like they had a video game on easy mode. But the second this creature from another planet comes around, they are shook, completely helpless, and to keep my simile game going, it's like shooting fish in a barrel for the Predator. These guys are so used to traditional terrestrial fighting styles, and that has worked so well for them up until this point. They are wholly unable to adapt to the unexpected and unorthodox tactics of the Predator, though, and it costs them dearly, except of course for Dutch. More on that in a bit. This cast of characters is quite likable and memorable. They are not the deepest or most complex characters, and they certainly don't exactly have huge arcs in the film, but they are still all memorable in their own ways, and they have great camaraderie. You completely buy into the idea that these guys are a team and have known each other for years, including the late, great Carl Weathers Dillon as the outsider with an ulterior motive adds to the dynamic as well. No one trusts him until the situation gets so dire that they have to. Hawkins is the jokester who desperately seeks validation. Pancho is the resourceful smart guy who is the last one to die. Billy is the observant tracker who is the first to realize something is up. Blaine is the badass with the one-liners and an awesome minigun. His friendship with Mac is one of the better parts of the movie. It's short-lived, but you could tell there is a real friendship there, which is highlighted by the fact that Mac loses his mind after Blaine dies. He truly cared about him. After Blaine's death, Mac talks to himself, shaves nothing on his face, repeats lines from Long Tall Sally over and over.
Long Tall Sally, she's Bill Sweet. She got everything.
And is hell-bent on revenge, even killing a wild boar, thinking it was the Predator. Despite years of training and experience, things start to unravel once these guys encounter something they don't understand. I have a lot to say about Dutch coming up, but the last side character is Anna, the lone woman in the film. You don't realize it at first, but she has an important part to play as well. She notices the green blood that came from the Predator and is the only non-warrior in the group, which leads to Dutch realizing that Predators don't attack people who are unarmed. Every character has at least one memorable moment and an important part to play in the grand scope of the film. Predator is also one of the most quotable movies, not only of its time, but ever. It is filled with iconic lines from start to finish, some goofy, some badass, some chilling. I could say them all for you, but you know what? It's probably better to hear it from the characters themselves instead of me.
Dylan! You son of...
It's a real nasty habit you got there.
Stick around. I ain't got time to bleed.
Anytime. There's something in those trees.
I can't tell.
Nothing on this earth could have lived.
Something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man.
If he bleeds,
We can kill it.
Oh, get to the chopper!
You're one ugly mother.
So many of these lines get used in everyday life, even by people who haven't even seen the movie. That's how ingrained in the pop culture zeitgeist Predator is. Let's talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch, the lead character of the film. What makes this film and Arnold's role so unique is that despite the fact that he's the lead and has such a large screen presence, Arnold doesn't completely take over the movie like he usually does, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, the character is extremely important, but he more so blends into the movie. He is a piece of the whole, a character that serves the story. Unlike Commando, Running Man, True Lies, Kindergarten Cop, and pretty much every other Arnold-led movie, I could go on and on, most people don't necessarily think of Predator as an Arnold movie. It's a sci-fi action horror movie with so many memorable elements that Arnold just happens to be a part of. Dutch is the leader of this team, and on the surface is just another buff, badass soldier that should on paper be no match for the Predator. But there is more to him than meets the eye. One of my absolute favorite things about Predator and the character of Dutch is the fact that he defeats the Predator because of his wits and perceptiveness, not his muscle. Hell, the one time he does fight the Predator hand-to-hand, he gets his ass kicked. That was clearly not the answer. Throughout the movie, he is constantly learning and observing things about the Predator and how it operates. He realizes the Predator doesn't take Hawkins' weapon or radio, hinting that it might be a different kind of killer. He understands that a creature that bleeds can be killed. He sets up the kill zone for the Predator, and it almost works. He realizes the Predator doesn't kill anyone who is unarmed and makes sure that Anna stays unarmed to protect her. He sort of accidentally discovers that the mud hides him from the Predator and uses that to his advantage in the final battle. Dutch is the only character amongst a group of badass commandos who figures out that traditional military tactics will not work on this thing and adapts accordingly, leading to a victory in the end. Since this is a slasher movie, Arnold is essentially the final girl, and he's a great one. One of my favorite characters he has ever done, certainly one of the smartest and most unique. I have made it clear in my videos that I am a huge score guy, so there is no way in hell I could go without mentioning the iconic Alan Silvestri score. Everyone knows the main theme that plays over the opening and end credits. I find myself humming it constantly. That's the piece that people remember the most for sure, but it's actually a pretty diverse score. You have the hype you up, action vibe of the main theme, but Silvestri is also able to capture the eerie uncertainty of the first half, the intense thrills of the second half, and even the tragedy of death. For a movie that combines so many different genres and vibes, you need a composer to capture those vibes and enhance the emotions the audience is supposed to be feeling in each and every moment. Silvestri of Back to the Future and Avengers fame is perfect for that. I mentioned how important atmosphere is in a horror film. That is not felt without the music. There's really only one actual song in the film, but it's a memorable one, Long Tall Sally. It's playing when they take the helicopter ride to the jungle, and as stated, Mac repeats lines from it later when he's spiraling. Clearly, these guys have some connection to this song. It's something they bond over, and I don't think anyone who has seen Predator can hear that song and ever think of anything else. Long Tall Sally is as closely associated with Predator as Shipping Up to Boston is with The Departed, Where's My Mind is with Fight Club, or Mad World is with Donnie Darko. If a song only makes you think of one specific movie, that's how you know they utilized it well. Predator is also a movie just filled with memorable little moments. Some of the creepier ones that stood out to me on this most recent rewatch were the birds flying around the hanging bodies, the Predator holding the scorpion, panning up to Hawkins' body, the Predator's glowing eyes, the Predator crawling on the tree twice, Mac's body twitching after his death, Dylan's shot-off arm continuing to fire the gun, Predator saying, "Anytime," after Mac is dead, Dylan's scream, Billy's scream, the Predator's dreads peeking out of the water, the sounds Dutch makes from the Predator's perspective as it beats him up, the Predator's evil laugh at the end, and there were also some that were less creepy but more so badass, like Dutch prepping for the final battle, then belting out that primal Tarzan-esque yell, the Predator's plasma cannon turning into fireworks, seeing the Predator's vision change as it takes off the mask, then doing what we all know as the Predator pose, further popularized by Clay Matthews, and of course, the aforementioned goated handshake, peak badass masculine manliness, but without being toxic at all, just awesome. These are all things that aren't necessarily relevant to the story, but they stick out and make the film even more memorable and iconic. I just had to mention them. Finally, let's talk about the final confrontation. Predator ends with a bang. It sort of shifted from slasher back into full-on action movie. They build up to it throughout the entire film. It comes down to this: mano y mano, Dutch versus the Predator, the ultimate hunter versus the ultimate soldier. Dutch was prepared, he was driven, and he probably should have lost, but the Predator's honor got the best of it and gets outsmarted by the savvy Dutch in the end. The Predator was the superior specimen and had more advanced technology, but there's just something about those human wits. Everyone always thinks of Arnold as a jacked meathead, and in a lot of movies he is, but here he met his match and makes the adjustments that none of his teammates, nor the Predator for that matter, could. It's an incredibly tense, satisfying conclusion that leaves you wanting to know more about the Predators. Why did it self-destruct? Are there more of these? This one gives you very little Predator lore, and I think that's a good thing. Let the sequels do that, and they do. But guess what? They're not as good until they go back to the basics. The simplistic approach is what makes this first one so great. Overall, despite maybe containing some B-movie qualities, Predator is still, to me, one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies ever created, and is considered a classic for a reason. On paper, this could be a fairly generic and goofy movie that gets forgotten about after all these years, but in the execution, so many things are done right that it transcends all of that. The cast is awesome. Despite being fairly surface level, we truly care about all of these characters and buy into them as a team. The atmosphere is great, enhanced by the great Alan Silvestri score and the mystery of what is going on. The tension is felt throughout the entire runtime. It continues to ramp up and never really gives you a second to breathe. The transition from Arnold action movie to brutal slasher, then back to action movie is seamless. The Predator looks awesome, both with and without the mask, one of the best creature designs ever, and it has some great technology. Dutch is one of the best and most interesting characters Arnold has ever played, a standout character who grows throughout the movie but doesn't become the center of attention like Arnold often does. It's very quotable and filled with awesome and eerie, memorable moments throughout. The finale brings it all home with a slam-bang action sequence that leaves you satisfied but also wanting more. Predator has stood the test of time, and there's a reason people still constantly talk about and quote it to this day. It set the bar so high that the sequels, despite being mostly pretty solid, have not come even close to living up to it, save for maybe Prey. Its legendary status is undeniable. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Drop your thoughts on Predator in a comment below, and please like if you enjoyed the video. I cannot overstate how important likes are for helping me grow my channel and increasing the viewership of my videos. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. Check out my Patreon for further benefits, and stay tuned for some more fun content. I will see you soon.